Okay, we're on. Good evening. Welcome to the Business and Economic Development Committee. This is a regularly scheduled meeting. We are running a little bit late this evening. It is 7:25. In attendance for committee members, we have Councilor Fish. We have Councilor Schaefer, Councilor Tremble, and myself. But at the table, we have Councilor Dean, we have Councilor Fournier, and we have Director Ann Krieg. We have 4 items on the agenda. The first one is the housing production plan, and I'm going to turn it back to Director Krieg.
Great, thank you very much. We have Sarah Kirk here and Sophie Danish from HR&A Associates, and I'm going to have them present the draft plan.
Great, thank you so much, Anne. And I'm really happy to be back here and talking to you all. I want to kind of specify this is not so much the draft plan, it is a preliminary set of recommendations and findings. So what we want to do is talk to you all about what we found, report out some of the market study that I know we talked about a little bit last time, and there was a lot of interest in seeing more data. So we want to share that with you and then talk about what that starts to point to in terms of recommendations. Check how you're all feeling about those preliminary recommendations, workshop them briefly, and then that'll give us some guidance to work with Anne and her team to finalize the plan and recommendations. So thank you again for having us. I'm going to just jump right in. We're going to provide a brief update on our process, share out findings from the market analysis, talk through some preliminary recommendations, and then just talk briefly about next steps. So our goal for today, as I mentioned, is to discuss some preliminary strategies, talk about priorities based on the findings of the work that we've done. We completed a residential demand and market analysis over the last couple of months. We engaged with various stakeholders, including this committee, and worked on understanding demographic trends, market data, and identifying gaps in housing affordability. And we're understood that this committee was particularly interested in understanding what types of housing should be a focus for development. We are in a process of sort of identifying feasible strategies and setting priorities. So we're sort of partway through this task 3 work and want to check in with you all before we move forward with more detailed implementation recommendations. We have a lot of market findings. This is kind of some of the highlights. We anticipate putting together a lot more information. So I'm going to go through this, but we certainly can come back and talk about anything in more detail that as it sparks questions. So what we've seen is that the population is shrinking, but it's not shrinking uniformly. There's a shift. So the population is becoming older, it's becoming higher income. And because of that, available homes might not always need, both because of that and as a cause, available homes might not always align exactly with the needs of Bangor's residents. So we've seen a significant growth in households earning more than 100,000 since 2012, while during the same time there was a loss of households earning less than 100,000. There's been a loss of about 2,000 households earning less than 75,000 during that time. When we looked at things like household size and the existing homes in Bangor, we saw that, for instance, 25% of homes have 0 or 1 bedrooms, but 40% of households have 1 person. So there's a lot of large housing and a lot of smaller households. And as I mentioned, we're seeing sort of a growth in the older population and a loss of working age adults. When we look at who might not be able to afford housing or why, what we see is that probably both low and moderate income residents struggle to find affordable rental homes. We've seen rents go up about 14% just in the last couple of years. So that's from 2020 to 2022. Median rent went up 14%, and by comparison, from the entire time from 2012 to 2020, rents only went up 10%. When we look at things like cost burden, we see that almost all of your renters below 50% of the area median income are cost burdened. So that's a significant need that we're seeing in the market. At the same time, we don't see a lot of cost burden for renters above 80% of the area median income. But when we look at other kinds of metrics, we see also some indications that those renters might not be able to find affordable housing in Bangor either. So for instance, if you look at the charts on the right, this shows sort of change in household income distribution from 2012 to 2022. And what you can see is that there's a loss of over 2,000 households earning less than 75,000. That includes those moderate income households. So what we're likely seeing is that the lowest income households, those below 50% of the area median income, they can't afford their rental housing. They're paying more than they can afford. They're cost burdened. The more moderate income households, those sort of 50 to 75,000, are likely unable to find housing that they can afford to rent in Bangor and moving elsewhere. When we looked at the distribution of housing cost burden, we also saw that there were just far fewer renters in that 80% of the area median income to 100% of the area median income category than either lower income or higher income. So those renters are likely just leaving because they can't find housing that's affordable. And of course, we see a higher instance of cost burden for senior households compared to renter households, which is another area of concern.
I have a comment.
Oh, yes, please.
Well, just when you show the percent increases in median rent, if you could put some dollar figures in there, it'd be helpful. If it
Yeah.
went from 800 to 950, or, I don't know, 1,000 to 1140, whatever, but some figures would be helpful to me.
Sure.
Traditionally, what the argument was even though we were unaffordable, Bangor was unaffordable, wasn't it was that high, it was our incomes were too low. And so you're saying, we're going up 14% in rents, but we're also seeing, incomes above 100,000 increasing. So, our incomes are increasing, but what percent, I don't know. It's always been that our rents weren't crazy, it's just our incomes were too low in the area,
Yeah.
so that we weren't affordable in Bangor.
Okay.
Yeah, and as I said, this is kind of a very distilled version of a larger market study. We'll make sure that we have those.
Okay.
And with the median income, I gotta do that, make sure the median income is clear on the different slides.
For comparison, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was mostly focused on renters. When we looked at home ownership, hold on a second. When we looked at homeownership, we saw that homeownership is also becoming increasingly unaffordable. And most notably, what we saw is that in the last couple of years, there's been a shift so that the median income household can no longer afford to purchase the median home in Bangor. So this chart on the right, you can see household income is trending upwards kind of at a steady rate. We've projected out what median household income might be. Currently, we only have census data as of 2022. But you can see the median home price in Bangor going up very sharply between 2021 and 2022. And so that's the inflection point at which we see that the median income household can no longer afford to purchase the median home in Bangor. That's kind of one metric that we use to understand how affordable homeownership is or is not in an area. Similar to rents, but even more pronounced, home prices have gone up very sharply in recent years, a 42% increase in median home value between 2020 and 2023. And that's compared to a 38% increase in the preceding 8 years. Homeownership rate is low in Bangor compared to the state. And so when we see homeownership's already low, home prices are really rising, that means that there's just a significant gap of access to homeownership. Median household income in Bangor is also low compared with the state. And the median home value is likewise low, but as we see, it's rising and rising very sharply. We also looked a little bit at market volume and market trends. We've heard some concern that maybe there's not enough homes available for purchase in Bangor, and we have heard that from a few different places. We do see, if we look at trends in how quickly homes are selling on the top, or how many homes are available for sale on the bottom, that there has been a decrease since 2017. Although those numbers might be starting to tick back up in the last couple of months, it's not clear whether that's sort of a trend or just an outlier. So what this suggests is that homes are selling very quickly. There are fewer homes for sale overall, but there has been a bit of a rebound in the number of homes for sale over the last year. There's a lot of reasons for this. It could be due to, in part, to high interest rates. We've also heard concerns about a lack of options for downsizing. That comes again into that analysis where we looked at the number of smaller households and the number of smaller homes. If somebody wants to remain in the community, they maybe don't need the 3-bedroom home that they own, but they don't have a smaller option in the community. They might not be selling a home where otherwise they would if they had someplace else to move. Any questions on that analysis?
Questions? Comments? Think we're good?
All right, great. And so as I said, all of that reflects many more data points and pieces of analysis that we did, but we tried to distill the key points that speak to what are the market challenges and how that translates into opportunities. We'd like to hear, of course, from you all about the challenges and opportunities that you see or are interested in addressing more. But some of the things that we've seen as rents rise, low-income renters have fewer options, and they may either leave the community if they're more moderate income or risk losing their homes. This means that there might need to be there's an opportunity to increase the amount of subsidized affordable rental housing, or rather the amount of rental housing for households at all income levels, with a focus on subsidized affordable rental housing for households at or below 60% of the area median income. In addition, we've seen that the city needs more housing for a diverse range of residents, including smaller households, including first-time home buyers, including seniors, and those moderate income renters. The opportunity there is to really think about ways to increase development activity, which I know the city has been working on already, to increase the feasibility of development in the city, with a focus on producing studio and 1-bedroom homes, both for owners and renters, as well as townhomes and other entry-level homeownership opportunities. I would say that's focusing on development types. There's also the income consideration, which is sort of both renter and ownership opportunities for moderate income households. Another challenge, there's a number of older properties in need of repair in order to remain safely habitable. I know this is something that the city has been focused on already. The opportunity there is really just to make sure that you're continuing to assist property owners to make those improvements to their homes and rental properties. When we looked at, in order to kind of bottom line that a little bit in terms of the types of homes that are needed in Bangor, you need more homes for residents of all incomes and all types, but there's some areas that might be more priority just because they're less represented or higher in demand. So that would be rental homes for low income and moderate income households, homeownership opportunities for both for first-time buyers and for downsizers, particularly those that are affordable to moderate income households. Smaller homes such as studios and 1-bedroom homes, particularly if they're located in or near downtown. And homes for seniors, which I want to stress could also be each of those 3 categories I just talked about. So it could be affordable and market rate. It could be age restricted or not restricted. But if you have, more home ownership opportunities for downsizers, smaller homes and affordable rentals, that's also a way to serve seniors, whether or not that's explicitly senior housing. Any questions about those initial opportunities and recommendations?
Questions? We're good.
All right. So I want now to talk briefly about our preliminary recommendations for the city. When we talk about affordable housing tools, we tend to say that they can fall into 3 overarching categories. There's land use, there's subsidy, and there's tenants' rights. So land use is any municipal regulations, zoning authority, information dissemination, anything that you can do with your regulatory authority to increase the supply of housing. When we talk about subsidy, that's anything that involves putting money behind to subsidize the production of housing. That might be market rate loans or grants. It might be public land, anything that helps to close the gap between what a household can afford and the cost to provide housing. And that takes the form of everything from gap financing for new development to support for owner-occupied rehabilitation. And then finally, tenants' rights. These are policies that preserve housing affordability and stability to help renters stay in their homes. And the city has already made a number of policy changes and investments across these three categories, right? So there's a number of land use changes that you've made in recent years in order to increase the feasibility of development of housing, in order to make it easier to develop a lot of different types of housing. And on the subsidy side, the city has primarily used federal entitlement funds for things like down payment assistance, weatherization, residential rehabilitation. You had one-time ARPA funds that were put in support of a number of housing projects as well. The city's also been doing work on tenants' rights. So honestly, as when we think about a comprehensive approach to affordable housing, the city's already doing a lot of really important things in all three categories. So I just want to make sure that we're recognizing the important work that's already been done in this space. When we think about potential recommendations, we tend to talk about alignment, feasibility, and importance. So does this tool actually help address the important pressing issues that we've identified in the community? What is needed in order to successfully implement this tool? And how important is it that we do this, or how effective and efficient is this tool going to be? Should we be pursuing it? We looked at a number of tools with potential to meet Bangor's housing needs, and we want to discuss them with you a little bit further with these ideas of alignment, feasibility, and importance in mind. So, you know, when we looked, we looked at things like what could the city do to increase by right zoning or make other land use changes. That's one we want to talk about. We're not going to talk about density bonuses or inclusionary zoning to encourage affordable homes. Typically, a policy like that requires a market with higher rent or sale prices, somewhere where development is already occurring, and there's an opportunity to encourage more development in exchange for getting some affordable housing development. We want to talk a little bit about ways to build developer capacity and encourage developer investment in housing. The city is already doing down payment assistance, already helping with property repairs. Those are really important programs that we think you should keep doing, but we don't see sort of important changes that are needed to make those programs operate better. But we do want to talk about how to dedicate local funds to support housing development through a competitive and transparent process. Are there other than these three tools in green, are there other things that you all were hoping to see that we should be talking about? Otherwise, we have more information about each of these three in green here. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So first we want to talk about by right zoning. This is basically work that the city's already been doing, and we want to talk about ways to continue to pursue zoning changes in order to make more housing development allowable by right and encourage more development. As I mentioned, fundamentally, you need more housing for everybody. And I don't think that's a surprise to anybody here. As I said, it's work that the city's already been doing very well. In terms, when we think about alignment, feasibility, and importance, land use changes are a great way to increase the feasibility of development and reduce market barriers to the housing supply. The city has broad legal authority to change zoning. It doesn't really cost anything. There is sometimes public pushback against by right zoning changes. If you give up more control over what can be developed, then people get less say in what gets built in their neighborhoods, and sometimes that is a challenge. And then when we think about importance, it's a way to accommodate more homes, to specify the kinds of homes that the city is particularly interested in seeing, and to reduce developer risk and increase feasibility. So it really does have the potential to be effective. I will say one potential limitation on the importance is that construction costs are still high and rents are still relatively low within the region. And that is sort of a fundamental bit of math that's going to make it challenging to attract developers to Bangor. Increasing the clarity of what's allowed is really important, and decreasing development times is really important to assure developers that they will be able to build what they're intending to build in your market. But it's not going to change the fundamental math of either who can afford the home or whether it's if there's a big misalignment between construction costs and the rents that the homes can support. So there's the two other recommendations that we want to make and discuss with you all, kind of try to get at that gap. Some of the potential zoning changes that we wanted to talk about, you've already done some work to reduce minimum lot sizes, primarily, as I understand it, in the urban developed zoning areas. So are there ways to reduce minimum lot sizes outside of those areas for residential development? We've heard a little bit about opportunities to build more housing downtown. That was a big area of concern. I believe there's currently a prohibition against ground floor residential downtown because, of course, you want to protect your retail street front, but thinking about ways to be a little bit more flexible about what could be allowed there would be another way to encourage more housing developments, particularly in downtown. And then finally, making sure that attached single-family homes, so townhomes and duplexes, are allowable by right in all districts where detached single-family homes are allowed by right. Currently, they're allowed in some, but not others. So those are some of the changes that we saw that would help both produce more housing overall and also think about some of those target types of development downtown and affordable entry-level homeownership.
Councilor Trumbull?
Yeah, just on the ground floor homes, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that we put that in place, and it's not all, it's just a few streets in the downtown, so I mean, we wanted to keep the feel of the downtown, what was a business, restaurants and businesses and not, I mean, I know there's some vacant buildings, but I think that, and people can have, I think, ground floor dwelling units if they can show it's a financial hardship not to have it.
Portion of the building.
Yeah, so I mean, I
Yeah.
don't think we need to
I'm with
change
you.
what we've got in place.
Yeah, I don't know that. I couldn't read it.
And this one, I don't think it should be in there. Before.
Okay.
Okay,
I would
that's helpful.
second that. I think that we would see a whole lot of ground floor apartments and we would lose commercials. I mean, we're already gonna lose the ballroom in the next year downtown, which is a cool space that is going to be likely turned into housing. So I would hate to lose the actual ground. The one place that there is one, it feels weird for people, it feels weird for me to walk by, and I don't think I'm gonna live there and have to have my curtains closed all the time. So yeah, take that one out.
Okay.
Other comments?
I just want to clarify one thing. I think one of the ideas was potentially to retain commercial on the street front, but allowing a rear residential unit. But I also hear that this is not something that you're interested in, and that's fine as well.
Right. Okay. Moving on.
Other
Great.
comments? Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sarah.
All right, well, we'll move on to the next one then. So the second one is building developer capacity. This one's a little bit it might seem a little bit abstract, but I want to talk to you about what's involved. This is about developing programming as well as outreach, both to build the capacity of existing developers, local small developers in Bangor, or people who might be interested in development, but not really know how to get started. Particularly people who might be mission aligned, whether they're for profit or nonprofit. And secondly, about encouraging investment in housing development, both for local developers and for developers within the region who might not have as much familiarity with the market and the regulatory environment in Bangor. So there's kind of two pieces here. It's about providing technical assistance and other support. It's about providing information. It's about helping developers move through the development process, particularly those who are less familiar with the city. It's about conducting proactive outreach to developers who might exist in the area but be less active in Bangor, to make sure that they understand the processes, that they know that the city is behind their proposals, that they understand that the city is committed to encouraging more housing and development in the city. So some of these changes might include things like creating clear lines of communication with the staff liaison, posting contact information on the city's website, hosting regular information sessions or office hours, generally being more sort of outward facing and engaging to bring people to the table to talk. It might be about providing informational guides for developers to help them navigate the certain like building permit processes or other processes within the city. This might be about things like leveraging nonprofit partnerships, such as the down payment assistance and homebuyer programs to bring in prospective homebuyers. You know, somebody who has a home ownership program might be more interested in building homes for ownership in the city if there's a ready pipeline of potential home buyers that are qualified for down payment assistance and ready to buy. It's also likely about engaging with developers and property owners to identify other kinds of support that would be helpful, to bring them to the table, to encourage them to invest, to help them figure out how to build an accessory dwelling unit, for instance, on their property. I want to say this is a great way to reduce market barriers and increase sort of just predictability for developers. It might require some increased staff time or capacity dedicated to this kind of activity, particularly in sort of the first year or so when you're developing a lot more of those relationships. But it's otherwise relatively low cost. It's about building relationships of trust and collaboration between the city and developers of all sizes. I also do want to specify that the impacts of this programming would likely be higher if it could be tied to some sort of financial subsidy, such as if the city had, for instance, a number of sort of vacant lots that it wanted developed and wanted to work with developers to figure out, how best to deploy them. For instance, I've seen in some places, if the city has a lot of vacant single-family properties, they can kind of develop a short list of developers that are in the community that want to do single-family infill, and that are sort of understand what the city's doing, able to buy the property for a relatively low price, and then turn around and sell it to a homeowner through a homeownership program. So that if you have a large volume of property or resources, something like that, that you can put behind this, it's sort of a better way to build the capacity of those smaller developers. I don't think that from what we've seen, not something that makes the most sense for Bangor, but it's also just, I think, in terms of the engagement with developers and property owners, something else to think about. Are there ways that the city could provide more support in terms of connecting them to land, or even just providing letters of support for funding applications for something like a low-income housing tax credit, things like that, that kind of come through developing those relationships.
Counselor Schaefer and then Counselor
I was
Trumbull.
gonna say, is this where we include the pre-approved plans?
Yep, that's
And
one of
this-
the projects, yeah.
I had somebody send me a thing from Strong Towns about the South, and I said, this is so cool, and I was like, we're doing this, and they were so excited to hear Bangor was doing it, so I feel like that's something that would fall into this category.
Yeah,
Okay.
pre-approved plans and informational guides are a great way to do this, exactly.
No one else, move on.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, and then finally, we want to talk about dedicating local funds to support housing development. This is about deploying funds, dedicating funds, and then deploying funds through a competitive and transparent process in order to meet a range of housing needs for residents. So land use changes alone, as I mentioned, are not going to overcome market barriers to housing supply in Bangor. The city really needs to allocate local resources in order to subsidize new development. Typically, you've been using federal entitlement funds, which are a good and important source of funding for housing, but they are limited in what they can do, and they are limited in scale. And ultimately, finding sources of local funding that can be used, and not just in a one-off, but in a kind of renewable, predictable way to increase development feasibility and to fund kind of a range of programs that the city is hoping to fund, or types of development is really the best way to focus efforts and again, sort of put your money where your mouth is in terms of these are the kinds of developments that we'd like to see, and we're interested in providing financial assistance to make them work.
Comments? Questions?
All right, keep going. Thank you, Sarah.
I do want to talk a little bit about potential sources for local funds. I know there's some challenges. For instance, dedicating a penny tax for housing would require state legislation. There are obviously other important demands on general funds. There's a lot of different types of ways to think about dedicating funds, but it's really local funding is going to have the most impact if it's, as I mentioned, sort of a steady annual stream of funding. What kind of conversations have been had? Is there interest in evaluating an affordable housing bond? Where is the conversation currently around this issue?
We haven't.
Yeah, we've been using our ARPA in the city council, as you know, has been dedicating a significant amount of the ARPA funds for housing projects, and we do a lot with our block grant program, as you know, so there's a lot that's going on from city funds, for sure.
Okay, the ARPA funds are one-time funds, so I guess the question is, if you want to be able to keep up that level of investment, what happens when the ARPA is allocated?
Right, that's something that we'll have to have conversations about as we go forward.
Great. Okay, as part of the recommendations here, we're going to develop guidance on how to deploy available funds in a way that is flexible, but also targeted to the city's priorities. And so this is going to include things like how to score responses so that they, can reflect an efficient use of funds, align with need and priority housing types, and are likely to actually get built, among other things. So this is some guidance that we are going to be providing, and think it will be very helpful, again, particularly if we can be putting funding behind this effort. In terms of next steps, I would love to hear any further comments that you all have on some of the preliminary recommendations that we've discussed here. Our plan from there is to put together some final materials, including that more detailed market analysis and some clear implementation guidance for staff to kind of take some of these recommendations and move them forward. But love to hear anything else that you all are thinking about in terms of how what would be valuable to hear about, what questions you still have that are unanswered, and what you'd like to see in that final document.
Counselor Dean?
I would like to know if there's a nationwide trend towards rental, or if we're just renting because we can't afford to buy. You know, back in the day, you would rent an apartment until you could save up for a down payment, then you bought a house. Now there are a lot of people renting. It seems more renting than purchasing. Is that the trend, or is that just because of lack of affordability?
I think it's both, right? Like I think it's two halves of the same issue. There's a lot of homeownership is becoming less affordable, and I can't exactly tell you whether it's partly because home prices are going up and incomes are not. It's partly because home prices are going up because there's a lot of institutional buyers and others who are speculating in the real estate market, and that sort of contributes to driving up home prices. So I don't have the exact like which came first answer for you, but like, yes, more people are renting and fewer people are able to afford home ownership. I don't know which one's driving the other one. It's a little bit of both, but I'd say primarily it's homes becoming less affordable, home ownership becoming less affordable, that's driving an increase in renters rather than the other way around.
Counselor Finn?
I'd like to take, I'm sure I'll come back with some questions once, I've read this, and I just kind of wanted to compare this to some other statistics that we have in the real estate field and experiences we've had. For instance, I know since COVID, in the housing market that we've seen, we've had a great impact of people being able to work from home, where Maine wasn't very competitive with wages and income. Now people are being able to take their jobs with them, and we've seen a great deal of sales from other corporate and other employees coming to Maine, because compared to their location, the prices were quite affordable compared to other places. And then they come in and buy, property sight unseen, 10 or 15% above asking price. And that has had an impact in the last couple of years, I know, for our local market. And rents are the same way. They come in. We've had some temporary employees come in for a lot of corporate businesses, and they also are offering a higher rent. So I just don't know what those percentages are for the change of just how the world has changed since COVID, and how that has impacted Bangor, and what age groups it greatly impacts. I know that there's a younger group, as you mentioned, the first-time home buyers, that we're seeing when interest rates were 3% and 4%. They could afford, they qualified for perhaps a $250,000, $300,000 house. Now that interest rates are at 7%, they can only afford a $150,000 house. So those things, I think, have also played a very big and significant part of the housing dynamics, probably anywhere, but specifically in Maine, where we've become more of a popular destination because of our house prices. So thank you very much for that. And I'm sure I'll have more questions later, and I can compare this to, the world of real estate, so to say.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments? Director Chris?
Great observation.
Yeah, what we could do is at your next meeting, we can put an agenda item just to, if you have, further comments, after you've had more time to look at it. We'll put that on, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Sarah, Sophie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
All right, next on the agenda, our economic development team is here to review a project they've been working on, looking at city-owned properties. You know, something that they've been working on in the last few months, and come on up. Yeah. Yeah.
It's here.
Yeah. So,
No, I have to share it.
yeah, first share screen.
It's here. Okay, now, and then we have gone to right here. Okay, here we go.
Nice.
All righty. Good evening, everyone. So as Anne had mentioned, we have been working diligently, really trying to understand all of our properties and get it into one central place so that we can really create strategy in the marketing and promotion plan to get in front. So I titled this Proactive Growth, and proactive just meaning that we can get in front of the selling and the leasing of our property. At this time, we're very much reactive in terms of customer inquiries, and we want to be able to promote and know our properties well and kind of understand it and create a strategic plan around them. So some guiding principles in this particular work is that we want to be proactive and strategically promote, as I mentioned. We want to coordinate and collaborate closely as the city of Bangor and the Bangor International Airport. Jose is here. He'll come for a little bit in a couple of minutes. We want it to be industry-led, right? Industry-led is a priority, meaning that we want to know the growing industries in our region. We want to know those industries that are in need. We want to know the industries that provide us a service that we need, and industries that create jobs, and industries that are positioned to be successful in our region. But with that, we want to make sure that we're flexible, because in the position that we're in, we need to be able to pivot at any time. There's going to be trends in the market that change things, and industries may change. And ultimately, our purpose in this is to be able to develop economically our city as a whole. And ultimately, if businesses have the right resources, they will be successful. So the flexibility is important with regards to business. And leveraging our partnerships to proactively promote. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the coming slides. So this is an overview. We'll come back to these and look at them a little bit more closely, but we have a tremendous amount of available lots in the main business enterprise park. And I'm not going to say much about this right now, so I will come back to it because I want to be able to connect the industries that we'll focus on with the actual properties. And the other is the Ban Air Business Park, the Bangor International Airport Commercial Industrial Park, and Outer Hammond. Those are the areas that we're going to be looking at tonight. So just a summary, in the main business enterprise park and like outlying region of the main business enterprise park, we have 22 lots available. In the Bangor Innovation Center, we have 2 flex manufacturing spaces available, so that's good and very much in demand. The Ban Air Industrial Park, we have 2 lots available. The Bangor International Airport Industrial Park, we have 9 lots available. And at our Outer Hammond, we have 4 lots available. So just a bit about the industry and sector-led focus. So the industries that we have chosen to focus on are healthcare, manufacturing, military defense, and again, being adaptable to business needs and the needs of our region. So I'll start with healthcare. There's a rising demand because retired baby boomers are retiring, so those professionals are retiring. And I think as we all have experienced, there's a rising demand for healthcare services. We want to retain our university graduate talent. There's many universities that have either very formal programs, medical programs and or certification programs. And in order to retain these graduates, we want to be able to provide them with opportunity for careers. And then we want to lean into our opportunity to build a skilled workforce with guaranteed employment. So understanding that while we are very much business driven is coupled with ensuring that we provide our residents and those that are attracted to our region jobs. I'll hand it over to Brad to go over the next two.
All right, so with manufacturing. Our location is great as far as transportation with the manufacturing sector and getting product in and getting product out. As far as workforce, we do have access, good access to workforce through the University of Maine Innovation Hub. And we like it. We've been collaborating with the University of Maine in Orono and other regional universities and colleges. And we'd like to tap in to those students who are graduating and help keep them here. We'd also like to utilize our foreign trade zone, and manufacturing is an ideal industry for our foreign trade zone. And we do have available land for manufacturers to come in and build the size that they would like and what they would like to do. As far as military defense, we have the Air National Guard base, one of the longest runways at our international airport on the East Coast, which for some military defense companies, that's important to them. And we are oftentimes military defense companies they support each other in some ways. So the more there are, the better it is. And currently we have a couple of military defense companies in the Bangor region who are operating, and we have strong interest from another company that is very interested in coming to Bangor.
That's a company that we met in London. So we had previously met with them prior to London. We saw them in London, and we've since met with them post-London. So we're really excited about that. Just to add with the manufacturing, I believe, and Brad, I'm sure you'll agree with me, but with regards to inquiries, we're getting the most from manufacturing space. So it's important that we pay attention to that. Also, in our work, we want to try to connect the dots. So with foreign trade zone, those businesses that are ideal for a foreign trade zone are those who are manufacturing product and then getting products imported from other countries. So we want to try to be mindful of connecting the dots here and making sure that our work is holistic. And then again, the adaptability, the flexibility to business needs. We want to have a business landscape. We understand that a business landscape is always evolving, and we need to be open to emerging trends. We need to be open to the needs of our residents and be open to how we can help businesses expand in other sectors. So again, a sector-led approach with a flavor of flexibility.
Councilor Trumbull?
No, I mean, I would just comment that as you laid out the 4 areas you're looking at, it seems like all these kind of fit in different areas, like the manufacturing. seems like-
Absolutely.
And the healthcare, and when the Maine Business Enterprise Park was first developed, it was developed as a healthcare park, although, I mean, it hasn't been all healthcare, but now we've got obviously interest in a number of lots for healthcare facility. So I think it's got a healthcare concentration out there already, so it's a natural area to grow more healthcare. So,
Yeah, I definitely agree. And we're gonna go back to those maps to look at them in a little bit more depth. So as you said, the Maine Business Enterprise Park is really dedicated to healthcare and business. And so we have several business facilities in the park already. Really excited to, and everyone knows that we are working with the VA hospital, and they've secured 3 lots with potential another lot. This is also where the Maine Enterprise Business Park is also where our central kitchen will be. So again, business focus, healthcare focus, our central kitchen will be business incubators. So we hope to have the opportunity to build other incubators where businesses feel like they can have space to operate and grow and thrive and ultimately continue to have a trajectory of growth. Brad, I know that I am forgetting another healthcare facility that we discussed earlier. There's something, oh, okay, no, it's not a healthcare facility. So this is the main business enterprise park. But if you go up a little further, we have the innovation center as well. And that's where our manufacturing businesses are, and we have 2 flex spaces there. So again, this area is a region of business and healthcare focus, and we're gonna actually be able, as we're proactively promoting this, we now know what kind of businesses we want in this area. The Ban Air Business Park, I'll hand it over to you, Brad. We've already started work in this area.
Yeah, so pretty straightforward. We have 2 lots left and available. One of which we're in process of selling to the doggy daycare that we've discussed earlier, which was lot 8. So this area does have several service type companies and distribution center with FedEx in there. So again, 2 lots available, 1 in process of being sold. So it's going well. There's not a lot of space left, but the space that is there is ideal for the type of businesses that are currently there.
And then for the most part, they are, when we took a tour of this area, the surrounding businesses are customer facing. So really any type of retail, maybe service business where a customer can actually walk in would be a good fit for that other lot. Okay, my friend Jose, would you like to join us? This is your area that we will share. So the next is the Bangor International Airport Industrial Park. And as I mentioned before, one of our guiding principles is working really closely. Jose and I work closely together to kind of have a vision that will develop both the city of Bangor and the airport.
Yeah, so as you might recall, recently we've been working very closely with the Business and Economic Development team to do outreach, not just locally, but when it comes to the trade air shows that we're attending and different events where we can leverage some of the resources and services that we can offer through the airport to entice more economic activity in the region. And so it's been great working with them, and obviously we can navigate through some of the requirements that are applicable to airport property. The FAA recently changed some of the way they interpret what is labeled or identified as airport property and for aviation purposes. And so we want to work very closely to make sure that whatever business opportunities we're pursuing align with the continuous growth of the airport in the right direction, and that they're not going to impact the operational needs of the airport as well. So, yeah.
And as you can see, there's a lot of property here. So, I mean, Jose, I know that you have plans for a garage facility, consolidated garage facility, as well as parking that's happening here. As we think through businesses that would be a good fit around this area, we always want to keep in mind that it may not be aeronautical per se, but it supports kind of traffic and attraction to the Bangor International Airport while ensuring that it provides opportunity to our residents and the city of Bangor as a whole. And then Brad, Outer Hammond.
Yeah, so in the Outer Hammond Street area, we have some fairly large lots. Almost all of it's uncleared land. This is ideal for the industrial type manufacturing companies. The lot sizes, will need to be the right fit. As you can see, we have our long, and thin lot. And we have the Queen City Mining, which is the area, to the right, the gray area right there. But, ideal for industrial and manufacturing and lots of space for companies that need space and very well maintained. It's a very nice area and industrial park. We took a drive through it and looked at everything, and it's a nice area that could accommodate the right type of business.
Now, keep in mind that these lands are not clear lands, so these would have to be very strategic and purposeful in attracting the right business, because that business needs to have the capital and the backing to build. Any questions?
Not seeing
Okay. So partners and promotion.
Yes, so our main partnership is with Epstein Commercial Real Estate. We work with them, for example, with Lot 8 and Ban Air, with the doggy daycare, we're communicating and working with Epstein Real Estate during this transaction. We also are either members or work closely with the Maine Real Estate and Development Association and Maine International Trade Center and the International Trade Administration. They're great to work with. The International Trade Administration has already helped us with different leads, and this is MITSE, Maine International Trade Center and the Maine International Trade Administration are also helping with not just within the state of Maine, but attracting folks from outside of the state of Maine and international companies as well. And then the goals of these partnerships is to promote the real estate portfolio within Bangor, but also beyond Bangor and Penobscot County to attract new investment and creating expansion opportunities.
And the thing is that we have to work smart, right? And utilize our partnerships. There's a lot of work that we're doing. And these organizations can really be our tentacles out to say, hey, this is what Bangor has, and kind of profile us. And as they do their own engagement with businesses, they can definitely be our promoters. So next steps, really happy, so happy to have an actual database where we have all of our property in one central place. And so we will keep that up, and we will revise it and make it current in terms of what phase of selling or leasing are we at, kind of our contact, and just make it kind of a customer relations database. And then create a marketing plan. I mean, Epstein has been our commercial real estate partner for a little bit now, but I am very interested in making our relationship a little bit more communicative, where we kind of get updates and share goals and things like that, so that they can be a truly vested in a partner. The other thing is to look at the market and look at what kind of innovative tools. We talked about traveling the country, and we went to an international trip in London, and it's important that we are completely prepared to showcase what we have. So there's some, I'm actually speaking to an organization about doing a video portfolio. So as we exhibit, as we exhibit our table at different conferences, we can have that as one of our swag material, where you can take a thumb drive and you can have a video of what Bangor has to offer in terms of property. So just getting creative, ensuring that we're constantly promoting, and we're promoting with regards to having events with our partners and doing webinars. And that is our plan.
Comments? Questions?
Looks good.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank
Council
you.
Travis?
Just say it's good to have a plan.
This is true, yes.
We want to make sure that we're on the right page of what, that you still see the business park as, Councilor Trumbull said, as, business and, healthcare related. So it gives staff that direction so they can run with it. Yeah. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for all your work.
Don't go too far,
Thank
Vicky,
you.
you're on next.
Maybe next time we'll be first.
So
We
also
burned our
Vicky
strengths.
is working on
Yes.
the pre-app.
Yes, 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 yes.
So, as we continue working on the architecturals for the central kitchen project, Begita has been working on looking at different funding sources to add to the funding that we already have. And so she's gonna go over that.
Yes, so the Northern Border Commission has a grant, it's called a Catalyst Grant. And so basically it's a grant, it's $1 million for infrastructure, 500,000 for programming. And it's supporting any type of project within a municipality or nonprofit that focuses on business expansion, creation of jobs. So we had a great, and it's facilitated by the state. So we had a great conversation with the state about a month ago, talked to them about the central kitchen. They were excited. And how this works is that our EMDC is actually, for lack of a better term, our overseer and our technical assistance partner. So the direction from the state was to speak to EMDC, of which I did, and we had a great conversation. And so they are supporting us tremendously. And in fact, when I spoke to EMDC last week, they said, wow, the state called us and asked if the city of Bangor had their application in yet. So that's a first from my contact.
Nice.
And we're really excited about it. So how this works is there's a pre-app. So we want to apply for $1 million of infrastructure. There's a pre-application. Pre-application, we wanted to share it with you so that we can get the approval to move forward. The pre-app is not the app. We have to be invited. So it's based on the pre-app and all the information in it. Then we would be invited to actually apply. So that's what it is.
And then it would be a formal, request of council, yeah.
Need a motion on this though?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would move staff recommendation.
She just moved it. And there was a second.
No, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
It is.
I like, can you also, so you can't apply for the 500,000 of programming?
I asked that. I was like, can we blend it? Can we put it together? No, it's a cap at 1 million.
Oh, okay.
So we'll get that towards infrastructure.
Yeah. Works.
Great. Any other discussion on that? Okay,
Thank you.
it's good to go.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And then, what else? I know. And then, we're also working with, Parks and Rec to, get some funds from the Community Challenge Grant. It used to be under ARP. We actually have had this grant, I think, a couple times before. And in this case, we are pursuing the grant to, get funds to make some improvements at Prentice Woods with everything happening, at Grandview, with, new development over there. This is a good time to make some improvements, to Prentice Woods, and we had done some accessibility work with, UMO intern through a Livable Communities Committee. And so we're gonna make a couple of improvements that were recommended, a crosswalk and, better signage at the, at the opening of the woods.
Sounds awesome. Move staff
Excellent.
recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
Yes, thank you.
Good to go. Is that all we have on our agenda?
I know.
Is there
That's
anything
all.
else? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Good night.
Yeah.
4 hours.
Yeah.
What are you like?